Man reporting live, back to you in Hollywood.
Okay, Joe. Thank you for that report and for being there all day, bringing us up to date on that situation.
Harold Green and Ann Martin are going to join us in just a moment as we continue our live coverage of the earthquake, but we'd like to kind of recap where we are right now at the top of the hour. So far, there have been 24 fatalities related to the earthquake. There were 19, along with 5 rather, that were described as heart attacks or people that had passed away just in the chaos that followed in the moments afterwards. Moving down the list, also, we can tell you that about 1,500 National Guardsmen are scheduled to be deployed. That is according to some information from ABC News. That includes 600 from the Southland area, along with an additional 900 that will be flown in. A number of freeway closures that Harold and Ann can bring us up to date on also, but just in closing at the top of the hour, in this hour, President Clinton went on national television wishing the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor the best of luck. He said he would be waiting for reports. He did sign a disaster declaration on live television. He said that this would be short-term assistance, but it would still take some time to assess the damage for losses. But the most urgent need right now was the freeways, that the federal money would be aimed directly at the freeways, because the transportation is so important to getting the economy jump-started again in the wake of this disaster. And moving on through the information, as we said, 1,500 National Guardsmen deployed or on the way, and they will be under orders from LA County Sheriff's Office as well as the Los Angeles Police Department.
And we also spoke with State Insurance Commissioner John Garamendi earlier today, and he stated the first thing you should do if you have been affected by this directly is to call your insurance company. Keep receipts in terms of hotels you stay in costs that you have had to accrue in the terms of surviving this and getting through the first few days, and contact your insurance company. He anticipates that despite the fires we all endured this fall and all the numerous natural disasters and civil disasters that we have seen here in Southern California in the past couple years, that there will be money in the insurance coffers to pay for it. It is expected that it will be taken care of. And if you are not insured, you should contact FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. They have funds available for situations such as this, and they will be able to help you through these next few days. If you are without a place to stay tonight, there are a great number of American Red Cross centers, and if you want to find out where your local one is, here's a number you can call. It's 213-739-5200. There's a great number of those. We'll be going over those throughout the evening, giving you some specific addresses. But in the meantime, again, this number is 213-739-5200.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Harold Green and Ann Martin online now. Good afternoon, everybody. We have 2 continuing problems unfolding throughout the Southland right now. I spoke with the Department of Water and Power a short time ago, and they tell me that only 35% of Los Angeles has power at this time. So we are looking at 65% of the people throughout the Los Angeles basin are without power. There is no word yet as to when the power will come back on. They are almost doing it block by block throughout the San Fernando Valley. Also, people who have turned off their gas, it's my understanding from the officials that it may be up to a week before your gas service will be restored, because that too is on a house-by-house basis. Now, for you folks living in the San Fernando Valley, if you have tried to take some water from your tap, you undoubtedly know, as I experienced a short time ago, that there is a brownish color within the water system now. That's because the filtration system up near Sylmar, up in the San Fernando Valley there, is not working. Also, the pump area that puts chlorine into our water is shut down now. So they are telling us, if you want to drink water in the San Fernando Valley, or let's say in the LA area for the time being, you must boil that water for at least 20 minutes before you drink it. Even if it isn't discolored, the point is the chlorine, the mechanism that chlorinates our water, is not functioning right now. So as Ann Martin slides in, we welcome you to our continuous coverage here on KABC-TV Channel 7 in Los Angeles. We are, Ann, looking at one of the freeways, one of 3 major freeways in Southern California that has collapsed because of this morning's 6.6 earthquake at 4:31. And it is a situation that has disrupted the flow of commerce. Even though it is a holiday, the flow of commerce is disrupted today and will undoubtedly be disrupted for at least another week, they're telling us now, not only here, but on the 10 freeway near La Cienega, as well as a couple of other major freeways. And Andy, you've got a list for us.
Why don't we run down the freeway closures right now? Some of the freeways in town, I know from being out there, are still functioning and people are out driving on them, but here are the ones that you definitely don't want to get on. And this, of course, the list begins with the Antelope Valley Freeway, the number 14 freeway, and the Golden State. And that's the one that where they pancaked onto each other. And you want to stay completely away from that area, those two freeways up at the north end of the valley. The 405 transition to the 118 eastbound is closed. The 118 at Balboa closed. The 405 and the 5 at Rinaldi are closed. The Santa Monica Freeway, of course, at La Cienega is closed, and at Fairfax also, and the tunnel going out to PCH is closed. Pacific Coast Highway is closed because of rock slides at Temescal Canyon. And there are other areas as well. Las Virgenes Road from Payuma to PCH is closed due to landslides. And the 118 from Balboa to the San Diego Freeway is closed. The 118 at Havenhurst Avenue is closed. You know, I think really, Harold, that staying off the freeways is an excellent idea right now if you can do it. It's really tough to navigate the Southland only on surface streets. And it's also tough to navigate the Southland on surface streets and stay off of freeway bridges, because we've got bridges in a lot of spots. But boy, when you think of what's happened already to so many spots on our freeways, and we continue to have these aftershocks, which means that more damage is not just possible, but likely.
Absolutely.
Being home and resting a little bit here in the last few hours, those aftershocks keep coming about every 10 minutes. You know, when you're very still, you feel them, and there has been no let-up in the aftershocks.
Let's find out more about the aftershocks and perhaps more about the epicenter and the initial quake itself. As we go out to Caltech right now, Dr. Carrie C. is holding a news conference. The preliminary reading, as we said, 6.6. Let's join Dr. Carrie C. in progress.
Right, right.
I imagine that you're going to have part of the ground to examine the area.
I imagine there'll be other geologists from the California Division of Mines and Geology and the U.S. Geological Survey, and maybe from Caltech as well, that will be looking for smaller features, things that Jim and I could have missed in the field from the helicopter today.
And another important thing is temporary seismographic stations in this area where we don't have any permanent stations that can help us locate the aftershocks better. Because if the aftershocks occur up in this area, then it has to be one of these two. But if aftershocks are occurring down here, then it's that one. So that's
Dr. C, if you could tell us again, Jeff Michael with Channel 7 News, we just came to you live, what it was you did not see during your helicopter reconnaissance that you were looking for.
Okay, we were looking specifically for surface ruptures right here. Okay, and we were also looking for any ruptures that might have occurred right here. We actually reconnoitered this entire area up here across the Santa Susana Fault. That's a fault that's very well known. It's been known for a long time. We suspected that wasn't it because it dips the wrong direction. It's a long ways away from the epicenter or the hypocenter. So we were looking along the trend of this fault where it comes up out of the mountains, from underneath the mountains. We were looking along this fault. And we tried to cover this entire area this morning in the area of the epicenter. So we covered an area about, 20 miles, Jim, by 10 miles.
And the fact that back in 1971 there was a surface rupture, you did not find one this time. Does that tell you that this earthquake was less severe, even though we've seen so much more damage than we did 23 years ago?
No. In 1971, not exactly this fault, but a fault like this one broke, okay? So in 71, when the geologists went out, they found that a fault very similar to this, right along the neighbor of this one, neighbor to the east in San Fernando Valley, broke, and there was in fact a big scarp right there, okay, 1 meter or 2 meters high. All right, didn't happen this time. Different earthquake. Last time, the mountains rode up over top of the valley. Today, we're still not sure whether the valley moved up relative to the mountains or whether this structure moved to the mountains. Rose.
This magnitude, about how much motion would you expect to have occurred at depth of 6.6? You're talking a couple of feet down there?
Something on the order of a meter to a couple of meters, so 3 to 6 feet, something like that.
And if you put your hands on the board and show the relative motion...
Hey, that's what geologists are good for, you know? If this fault moved, then this side would have moved this way, all right? If this fault moved, then the motion would have been like that.
Oh, you can't tell the difference now, but from your data.
Can't tell the difference, but I suspect that in the next few days, the seismologists will be able to do the geologist one up, and they'll be able to say, well, the aftershocks are falling like this on a nice plane like this. Or they'll be able to say that it's on a plane like this, or it's on a plane like this.
Dr. C, but in either case, it appears that the Northridge Hills or the San Gabriel Mountains are what, a foot, 2 feet higher than they were yesterday?
We can't say that right now. I was asked what I'd expect in an earthquake of this size. I would expect that those sorts of deformations would be visible. If the faulting only occurred very deep here, then you might only see on the order of a few inches at the surface, spread very broadly over the whole region. If the faulting came to very close to the surface but didn't quite break it, you might see a local dip on the order of a few feet.
Does anything in either of these theories say anything about an aftershock that could come? And I know we're moving further away from the possibility of a 5.5 as time goes on, but for the people who are wondering what to expect, anything that either of you two have been able to surmise so far?
Well, as of midday today, it was about 50-50 chance of a magnitude 5 plus aftershock, and about 1 in 10 or 10% chance of a magnitude 6 plus aftershock. And it's certainly much less than that 3 hours later from the estimate. So we're completely not out of the woods yet, but the aftershocks are diminishing, becoming less frequent with time.
Possible faults here,
Once again, this is Dr. Kate Hutton at Caltech, and that was Dr. Carrie C., who is a geologist here at Caltech, giving us our 3 o'clock briefing.
Okay,
Jeff,
well,
Michael,
the Devonshire fault
yes.
was known before.
Did he mention that they had found a fissure out in the San Fernando Valley? Did they, as they did with the Landers quake, there where the earth had actually opened?
No, in fact, Harold, that's what they were looking for, and they did not find a surface break. If they had found that surface break, that would have been able to tell them which plate had ruptured, which direction the force had shifted. But they didn't find it at this point from about 300 feet off the ground, and they say they need to get back out there and do it on foot and really take a closer look.
So they'll actually spend the next several months pinpointing exactly where this thing began and exactly how big it was.
Also, Jeff, is this a quake that they were aware of, or is this just one of the hundreds that crisscrosses the Los Angeles basin that suddenly got active this morning?
Well, actually, Harold, there are probably, according to Kate Hutton, about a dozen or so fault lines that, as I back up here, excuse me, probably about a dozen or so fault lines within the San Fernando Valley area. And this was one of those fault lines that they had not charted so far, or charted so far, and this was somewhat of a surprise to them as far as the fact that one of these 2 lines that Dr. C was looking at actually ruptured. They didn't know anything about it.
Well, there are fault lines on top of fault lines as well. Sometimes you have one fault hiding another one because it's actually several feet down. Jeff, we've got some new information about water that we'd like to share with people here. So far, we've talked about the Department of Water and Power and the fact that their filtration plant is having problems. That's the plant that serves the city of Los Angeles. The Metropolitan Water District serves all the rest of us, pretty much, and they say they have shut down their filtration plant in Granada Hills, but they do not expect that there will be any cutoff in water. DWP is going to be cutting off, or has cut off, the water to the whole north end of the valley, and they're advising their other customers to add bleach to their water or boil their water. MWD is not making any recommendations like that. They're working on a leak up in Granada Hills. They expect to cap it, and they're not saying that there's any real problems with the water to MWD customers. So if you've been wondering if your water is safe to drink, if you're in the city of LA, boil it. If you're not, probably don't worry.
Yeah, I wouldn't take a chance. I'm a little cautious on that side. I'd rather...
You're going to boil it up,
I'm going to boil it anyhow, just to be darn safe. And as we look at this devastating scene where this freeway has collapsed, we get a bird's eye view of 2 cars that were obviously on that structure as it went down. Rick Romero is on the ground. Let's go down to him. And Rick, this from the air is a devastating scene. From you, it almost looks like Tonka toys that have been twisted and flipped over.
Well, Harold and Ann, Tonka toys is one way to describe it. I describe that rebar as just strings of spaghetti hanging there right now. Some of it, the thick black stuff, is, well, I'm not an engineer, but I understood that this particular section of freeway was supposed to be tied together so that it would not separate during an earthquake, and that could be portions of that particular tie material that is used, and it looks like it's just stretched. As we look beyond this particular section of freeway, which, by the way, is the Antelope Freeway, Highway 14 northbound onto the Interstate 5, Golden State Freeway. On the other side is a segment of freeway that connects the 14 southbound onto the Interstate 5. there a section of this freeway just dropped about 30 to 40 feet. And that happened, of course, this morning at about 4:30. About 45 minutes later, an LAPD officer on a motorcycle was driving on that particular section of freeway, and he was going probably about 40-45 miles an hour, but it was dark and there was heavy dust in this area, a lot of dust because of the hillsides that are here, and as the earthquake took place, it caused this dust to rise. He couldn't see, even though he had his lights on. I'm getting this from an eyewitness that said that he saw all of his lights on, and he flew off of that particular section, and he thought he was seeing a UFO, and he landed, of course, on the pavement. And that was our first known fatality within this particular earthquake that has taken place. Also, we have just panned over, and you can see a section of cars. There are a line of cars. Those have been there. I have seen them move probably about 20 to 30 feet in the last half hour or so. These are vehicles that have been making an attempt to go northbound on what is a major artery for northern and southern California, especially for the truckers, and they've been trying to make their way up here. Now, I think Captain Ron talked about this earlier, that they were having them turn around and head back. We haven't even seen cars being turned around and heading back. They're stuck there. So if you have any plans at all to get on the freeways, you've been talking about this, Ann, forget it. And forget it if you're going to be coming up northbound on the Interstate 5. There is no place to go. They are diverting the traffic off. In many cases, they are just staying within their cars, and there is no place to go. Now, as
Rick,
I go
can
up
I
this
ask
way,
you
sure.
a quick question here to pinpoint your location a little bit for us? Are you near where the California Aqueduct comes down off of the 5 as we head north?
I'm not sure if we can get a shot of it. It's over to the left, and right above that line of cars, yes, that is where the California Aqueduct line is. Now, we've not seen any activity up there in the way of somebody working on it, but we do understand that that is quite possibly damaged as well, because obviously with the freeway structure here that has gone down, that could easily separate.
Well, that's
also
what I was
in there,
thinking,
Harold,
because that's also a concrete structure that traverses hundreds of miles of the state of California, and there in particular we can see it as it drops down right next to the I-5, and I was just curious if when you were driving there, if you had noticed any activity around there.
No, we hadn't, but I'll tell you one other aspect of this. This, as we've been talking, commerce is so important. There is a train tunnel that also runs under this particular freeway structure, the interchange, and as Air 7 gives you a shot of that, you can't see the tunnel, but there are train tracks here. We're not sure what kind of shape they are in as well. That could also cause a problem for Southern Pacific and Union Pacific railroads that run along those tracks, and Amtrak as well.
It's
Going further up north from this particular section where I'm at, Harold and Ann, is a section of Interstate 5 that also collapsed. Interstate 5 northbound and southbound. That means that all of this, the interchange, even if they were to clear it, Interstate 5 is still collapsed and undrivable. And there, this morning, we witnessed the destruction of 2 automobiles that had gone off of the freeway, landed upside down, and 3 people were airlifted out of here to area hospitals. One of them we know was seriously injured. At least one of them was seriously injured. And this is Rick Romero reporting live from the Highway 14 and Interstate 5.
Rick, I'm trying to speculate if it's even possible to drive north of Los Angeles County today if you absolutely had to get either north or come into the county. And I'm wondering if you've heard from any of the CHP that may have been around up there, if it's possible still to go through Pear Blossom and down through Angeles Crest Highway into La Cañada, or is it possible to get through at Ojai and down through Fillmore and maybe through Moore Park to get south?
Well, Ann, I've talked to a couple of the CHP officers that, in fact, when we first got to this spot, I talked to them and asked them about that, and there's still speculation as to, within their own forces, as to what is open and what is not. Perhaps you have a better handle on that, but I can tell you this. There were some looky-loos that had come out here and were trying to walk around underneath this structure, if you can believe that. There was a man with his son, a young son, walking under there. CHP officers were using their microphones to try and let them know, their megaphones, trying to let them know that, hey, this isn't safe. You know, an aftershock could bring the rest of this down, and this man is just lollygagging, walking down, just ignoring the CHP officers.
Yeah, he's awful lucky to be alive. To answer the question, I checked as well about getting north, and you almost have to do a couple of things. You have to go east if you can, and you have to circumvent that particular junction by going east on, say, the 10 all the way out to the 15, and then head up north.
Oh, go up through Barstow area,
up through the
there,
back way,
as if you were going to Las Vegas.
Absolutely, up that way, or as you suggest, if you can get up to the 101, if you can push it all the way up past up past Oxnard and the like, and then cut over to the Fillmore area and through there. If you plan on doing that, as you know, those are generally 2-lane roads, and it's going to take you quite a while. You can make that trick if you want, but it's a toughie. Now, right now, I want to clarify something with you, Rick, before we get away from you. You're telling us that people are sitting in their cars in the northbound lane off to the side of the road over there?
Let's see if we can't just swing around. That is, I believe, Old San Fernando Road that runs parallel with Interstate 5 coming northbound. It runs right up against that ledge and cliff. Air 7 might be able to give you a better shot of it now.
Are you suggesting that traffic is moving?
I have seen it move probably 20 feet in about, the last half hour, 45 minutes. I'm keying on a particular semi-truck that's got a green truck and the white body there, and I've only seen it move, but just slightly.
You know, several hours ago, it's coming back to me now on the radio, I did hear somebody mention that Old San Fernando Road was still a possible route up into Lancaster, Palmdale. Obviously, that's not true right now, because if that's what we're looking at, I'm saying that's not true if that's what we're looking at. That's obviously not moving.
And I might also mention that around this entire area, of course, even if you are able to circumvent some of this and get into this area, the electricity's out, gas stations are closed, and of course, restaurants and grocery stores in many cases are also closed. We, in fact, had to go get gas. We went to Acton, and that was as close as we could get to finding gas, and we waited in a considerable line.
Well, you're not alone. In the San Fernando Valley, the same story, Rick, as well. It was a holiday. Many stores had planned sales today for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, but the fact of the matter is, with the quake, they did not open. Gas is scarce in the valley. My place was closed down today where I normally get gas. Drove around as well trying to find some that are open. And right now there are a lot of people out trying to secure batteries. They're trying to secure things, I might add, we've been telling you here on Eyewitness News, but they are out trying to get bottled water and the like, but many of the stores are closed today. They are not open. And I think we're going to have to ride this out until tomorrow, and a lot of people are going to have to do without tonight, particularly these areas that are without power. They tell us, the authorities tell us, it is not a good idea to light candles because these aftershocks can be strong enough that they could knock those candles over. So we wish you well, but that's the situation right now. The places are not open to do business today.
Thank you very much, Rick, for your live report from up there at Interstate 5 and Highway 14. We should mention that there are hundreds of thousands of people in Southern California who are without power right now and will probably stay so for at least several hours, if not another day or two. And interestingly enough, there is no power up in Ventura or Santa Barbara as of just an hour or so ago. And I had a phone call at home from Seattle. There was no power for several tens of thousands of people in Seattle. It's something to do with the switching and the shut-offs and shutdowns, and he couldn't explain it, but they've felt our power outages all the way up the West Coast. And everybody, of course, in the nation is glued to their television sets. They are getting updates from Los Angeles to find out what's happening to us here. It is the major story, of course, in the nation.
3 western states felt this and were impacted with loss of power. Yet you go right around the corner to Orange County, and Barney Morse was reporting earlier that other than the Big A losing the Big A sign and the scoreboard down at the stadium, OC got through it just fine, and he was unaware of power outages, but it has impacted 3 or 4 adjoining states.
And been felt an extraordinary distance. We had a call early this morning. I don't know if we ever even reported it to you because there was so much else that was breaking at the time, but we had a call from New Mexico. Somebody saying they felt this earthquake in New Mexico. That's a long ways away.
Let's check in with Captain Ron, who is over the scene. Ron, we've been watching the cars that are there. We know that the people have been taken away, but now we see some activity on foot. Your thoughts on that? Perhaps Caltrans workers assessing the damage?
You know, Harold, most of the activity that we have seen on this freeway has been Caltrans. Now, we watched a group of semi-trucks, was the only movement we watched, and they did travel southbound. There was 3 trucks, and they traveled southbound on the 5 freeway through the pass. And with that, we followed them down. And earlier, we had a picture of where they stopped. This is right where Rick Romero was talking about. Right where the old road goes underneath Highway 5 is where it caved in, and both north and southbound 5 are completely blocked off. This is just before the Calgrove off-ramp, by the way. And these people are Caltrans. They're down there apparently just assessing the situation. And these trucks had large boxes, very, very large boxes on the back, and we can only presume they were in some way, we can see them, I can see them from here, in an attempt to keep any further damage. They were working real hard when we were down there, and a little later we'll be able to get down there and give you an idea what that looks like.
As I look at this scene, Ron, I can't help but tell myself that sometimes we, as mankind, do not learn our lessons. In 1971, when we covered the Sylmar earthquake, the few freeway overpasses that were out in that area also collapsed like this, along with the Veterans Hospital. It seems to me that we no sooner got that cleared up and we began building out there, more people moved in, creating more roads, the need for more roads, and 20-odd years later, it is very reminiscent of what happened on that February morning in 1971.
Well, if I can horn in here, fellas, the governor earlier today was saying that Caltrans had divided, after the Loma Prieta quake up north in San Francisco, Caltrans had divided the freeways in the state into 3 categories: high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And they had done their retrofitting on the high risk intersections and freeways, and they had just about finished with the medium risk. And believe it or not, the Santa Monica freeway, he said, which is split apart in 3 different sections down there, was a low risk section of freeway of our system. And I can only assume that this bit up here in the Antelope Valley, or in the Antelope Valley interchange here, must have somehow either been retrofitted or had been judged to be low risk because it was state of the art when it was new, and it wasn't too long ago. I don't know, I'm speculating here about this, but a lot of retrofitting has been done, and supposedly the really high risk places had been taken care of.
Annie, let's bring our viewers up to date, right up to the minute right now. This morning's earthquake, 6.6 on the Richter scale, 200 plus aftershocks, some registering as high as 5. Ann and I both commenting earlier that we took a break for about an hour and we thought we felt an aftershock about every 10 minutes or so. And 24 people are dead. Of that number, 5 of them apparently died of heart attacks. Others died as a result of car accidents, falling structures, and 1,500 National Guard troops deployed. There has been a minimum of looting in the San Fernando Valley, but Governor Pete Wilson deployed the National Guard to help in that effort, but also to utilize transportation troops so that they can help out the local authorities. The Los Angeles Unified School District is closed tomorrow. We also have the following school closures. Campbell Hall in North Hollywood will be closed tomorrow. There will be no school tomorrow. There will be no finals at Campbell Hall in North Hollywood. St. Casimir Elementary and Junior High, Windward High School in Mar Vista, Annie Agua Dulce School District, the elementaries, the junior highs, and the high schools, they'll be closed tomorrow and day to day after that.
And Echo Horizon in Culver City closed tomorrow and Wednesday. Also, Loyola High School in downtown Los Angeles is going to be closed tomorrow. And as we get further updates on schools, we'll bring them to you. Compton Unified School District is going to be open tomorrow. You're looking at the scene of a leak that has been burning for some time here out at Rinaldi and Balboa in Northridge, and Art Rascone is there with an update. Art.
And yeah, what you're looking at, as you said, huge gas main busted up early this morning just after the quake, and it was apparently leaking quite a bit of gas for some time before anyone really set a spark to it, and then it exploded. And soon after it exploded, it quickly ignited practically this entire neighborhood. Russell, just right over here, you can see one home right here down, and then right next to that one, another home burned to the ground. And these just went up really, really quickly. And I talked to the fire department official and a couple of other neighbors around here, but they have all since been evacuated, so we don't have them here now. But they had said that they were all able to get out of the out of the area very quickly. And you can see how quickly this fire spread. Notice that vehicle right in the middle of the intersection there. Obviously, the fire was spreading so quickly throughout this area that they were unable to get the vehicle out. They just ran for their lives. And then over on the right-hand side of the east side of that flame are 2 other homes. So you have a total of 5 homes in this area that were burned to the ground because of this gas main break. And also, you'll notice there, just where it's burning, the road is all broken up there, and it has sunk at least 8 feet down. And then further down Rinaldi, or Balboa rather, which I'm on, you have a huge, massive water main break as well, which flooded the entire block with 3 feet of water. You live in this area, sir. Did you hear the explosion?
Yes, I did. It was incredible. It lit up the night just like it was sunrise. And you see the flame as it is now. It was at least 3 times as big around, and maybe as high as these palm trees, over 100 feet high.
That flame right there, over 100 feet?
Oh yeah, it was as high as the palm trees.
And what did you just come immediately running to the area?
No, I could see it quite clearly from my house. I had, of course, you can well imagine a lot of stuff to do around the house, but you couldn't help but notice the flame from blocks and blocks away. I just live a few blocks, but it was really incredible.
And what about the homes in this area? You saw them go up in flames.
The wind was blowing quite a bit harder than it is right now, and these houses never had a chance. I mean, the flames were literally, touching the tops of these trees here.
Okay, your name, sir?
John Goodman.
John, how's your home sustained some damage?
Like somebody threw a stick of dynamite in it, but we've maintained pretty well as far as structural damage. We were very, very lucky. Other people on our block are not so lucky.
All right, John, thank you very much. Good luck to you, okay? Thanks for speaking with us. Okay, so the situation here, fortunately, we're able to report there are no serious injuries, but just a lot of structural damage, particularly 5 homes burned to the ground. You have at least 1 car there. You have another car behind that area as well, the flames that burned down as well. And fortunately, as I said, no lives lost, particularly in this area. However, there were several injuries. Live in the Granada Hills area, Art Rascone, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Art, what's your supposition here, that they'll have to cap that line farther north of you?
That's what they're attempting to do. We have gas crews just north of us, as you said, about a block, and they're continuing to try and drill in and then just cap it somewhere so it stops at this area. That flame used to be 100 feet in the air, but it's now down to about 20 or 30. So they've made some progress. Either that or the pressure of the gas has been expelled somewhat, as well as the water main around here, by the way, has been plugged up. They did solve that problem, but the only problem they have now is that none of the homes around this area have much water pressure.
Wow, no. You had that big blowout, didn't you tell us earlier? Wasn't that on Rinaldi as well,
yes.
that water pipe blew?
It sure was. That water pipe just blew up, and it shot water 100 feet in the air and flooded this entire neighborhood.
That neighborhood has been through it today, Art. That whole Granada Hills, Northridge area, the epicenter right underneath their feet, and we've watched just one problem after another, literally earthquake, fire, and flood, all on the same morning. Linda Breakstone joins us here in the studio, and she's been up in the Granada Hills area, brought back some tape, and you want to take it away and tell us about it.
It's been wild. We shot a lot of tape. Cameraman Steve Chacon, we went into some of the homes and actually saw what these homeowners were going through. You know, we've seen all the devastation on the outside. Here you see one living room as we go into the kitchen, and I imagine most of the San Fernando Valley home kitchens look like this, with all of the cupboards totally emptied. You've got things everywhere. These people are not only devastated by the aftershocks, but they walk back into their houses and they see this, and they do not know where to begin. Where do you start picking up? Look at this cupboard here, sheets, everything is out of this cupboard. This home is particularly hard hit. We just had another aftershock just now. Here we go. And here's another bedroom. We're still shaking here. This is a very big one.
That's a biggie. We are happy to say that
we are watching our quake cam right now, and I don't think we really need to see this visually. I think we can all feel it. A substantial aftershock to this morning's earthquake has just rumbled through Southern California. We here in Hollywood at Studio 52 are A-OK. That is, Ron, you're on the air. Is that dust rising up from that? From that aftershock?
Harold, all over the valley. In fact, what I'd like to do, if I can keep our picture up, you cannot believe what I'm looking at. I'm going to turn the aircraft to the west. Look to the west here, Marco. And what you'll see is dust all over these mountains. In just a moment here, let me go around a little bit further. And hopefully you can see what I'm seeing throughout these mountains. I can see this up to about 15 miles away as that aftershock came through here. It's extremely easy to tell. Now, we've been watching this earlier today. However, because we were so busy in other things, I wasn't able to point it out. But this is probably a pretty good aftershock for you guys, and I hope you're able to see what happens out there during these aftershocks. Can you see this, Harold?
Yes, we can. This is the site we were talking about earlier this morning, but we couldn't really define it for you because of the darkness. But out in the valley, this is what we experienced as the sun was coming up. We saw this dirt residue hovering over our skyline, and this has happened once again. Now, the earthquake we just went through, we are efforting to get back out to Caltech to give you an idea of its magnitude. We will say right now that we believe that it is an aftershock of this morning's earthquake. It felt as strong to us here in Hollywood as the one this morning, but I'm telling you, you look at the quake cam, I'm giving you the Harold Green seat of the pants reading right here.
I'd give it the Ann Martin seat of the pants is a 5+, and I will tell you, I've never seen any picture like that one to send up that amount of dust in the hills north of the city. That is, that gives you pause to be quiet and just think for a minute.
Right.
You know, Ann, just a moment ago, there was nothing out here. The hills were quiet, absolutely not a bit of dust.
Early on, they told us that the mountains there were raised some 2 feet this morning by the original earthquake, and that the valley compressed ever so much, meaning one mountain range squeezed toward the other mountain range. What I would like to remind everyone right now is, again, I want you to remain calm. If in fact you have not gone through the earthquake procedures, please get your phone book, open it up to the front pages. They have all of the things you should do in the event of an earthquake. Again, check for the smell of gas immediately around you. If you do not smell gas, don't turn it off, because it's going to take at least a week to bring it back on. But if you have any fear whatsoever, shut off that gas. Also, check with your neighbors. See that everybody else around you is okay. There is, in fact, strength in numbers on days like today. And stay with Eyewitness News. We have just had one hellacious aftershock. We were mentioning that we have been feeling them every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes. They've been running anywhere from 2.5 to 3 to 4. They told us a couple of 5s, but the one we just experienced here in Southern California was what we will call a severe earthquake.
Now, and because of the possibility of big jolts like that I think it was Gene Gleason earlier today was saying, if we'd had an earthquake like that 6 months ago or yesterday, we would have been running in here to spend the morning covering that for you. But this was just an aftershock. Aftershocks that strong, that is the reason why you don't get out on the freeways today.
And that's why you don't go looky-looing, as
don't go
Rick Romero
looky-looing.
was mentioning about the guy and his kid.
In fact, if you don't have to, if you've got food in the house to eat and everything's pretty much okay, if you can stay off the roads, do so. If you can stay off the phone, do so. We're not out of the woods yet here. And that kind of a shock just a few hours after the big quake is ample warning to all of us that it isn't over yet. And we can continue to expect that.
We've been hearing from the people out in Caltech that the further we get away from the initial quake, the better off we are. The possibility of a stronger quake following the initial quake is lessened by distance, but the aftershocks will continue. And as we learned, particularly in the Landers and in the Big Bear area a year and a half ago, those aftershocks can be substantial, particularly the time period closest to the original quake.
That was within the same 24 hours, wasn't it? It was Lander and then Big Bear, and they were almost identically sized.
One triggered the other.
7 and then a 6.5.
Yes. Right. So, and we're calling this an aftershock, and quite frankly, until we get out to Caltech, we will work under that supposition. But there is every possibility that the quake this morning could have pushed some energy into another fault, and it too activated. That's what happened in Landers. The Big Bear one followed it, and they said it was the way it released pressure.
You know, you were talking about staying off the streets. We were in the San Fernando Valley looking at all the damage, and I was stunned at how many cars were on the streets in the valley. Stunned.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of cars, and you're probably right, a lot of looky-loos, a lot of people looking around. And, you know, with half of the lights, more than half of the lights out, you had a lot of accidents that almost occurred right before my eyes. People kept going.
It's
they don't know where
true.
to stop
It's
and go
true.
and stop and go, and it was terrible. I was stunned. They were still out there. They really should go back home.
And tempers can be edgy when people are rattled and they're afraid, and so it's not a time when people are necessarily going to be the most patient. We've seen scenes at gas stations and food stores here where people are really uptight.
Long lines.
don't add to it. If you can stay home, folks, just stay home. You're not going to miss anything. We'll try to get everything on television here
The
for
scene
you.
we're watching now with the dust up in the air reminds me of the '71 quake. There was at that time Western Airlines, and a Western airline was coming in. Airliner was coming into LAX, and the pilot and the co-pilot looked down, and they were coming in over the valley. I'm sorry, they were going into Burbank, and they were coming in over the valley, and they said that the lights from the valley began rolling toward the ocean, as though someone had taken a blanket and popped it from one end to the other. This rolling sensation went all the way out into the ocean, all went out, and the energy dissipated out into the ocean. This is the kind of energy that is being released with the movement of Mother Nature today as we look at these mountains out in the North San Fernando Valley. Once again, this is perhaps an aftershock to this morning's earthquake of 6.6. It is a substantial aftershock. We are out at Caltech with our people, but I must tell you, as most people in Los Angeles are without power right now, and I'm sure a lot more just lost power, some of our sites are also losing power, and that might be the case at Caltech. We will get to those people out there and bring you the very latest on what just occurred about 3 or 4 minutes ago.
Yeah. You know, the smell out there is terrible. It smells like burning plastic or sulfur. And it comes in waves. It comes in waves. There'll be an aftershock and you'll smell something again. At one place I was at, there was a car buried beneath the apartments and it was still smoldering. And it would shoot up in flames, the fire department, but they couldn't get to it yet because they couldn't go through all of that rubble yet. Nobody's life was threatened. But the smell kept coming back. And these people are living through the smell too, along with the dust.
The smell must be horrendous.
It's very hot out there.
And it's hot. And if you don't have power and you don't have water, this is a very, very unhappy day for many people. I'm hearing in my ear from our producer, Gloria, that people have felt that aftershock, have called into us from Ventura and from down in Orange County. Mark Brown is out in West Los Angeles, and let's bring him into this. We're looking at the dust clouds out over the valley. Did you feel it out there in West LA, Mark?
Did indeed, Ann. We are on the 2000th block of Federal. We're a little bit south of Wilshire Boulevard here, about, half a mile or so south of Wilshire Boulevard in Westwood. And we did indeed feel it. We are at the home of a 90-year-old woman. Her name is Juanita Neri. 90 years old, moved into this little house here when she was 18 years old, and she has lived there ever since until today, because the earthquake this morning knocked that house about 3 feet off its foundation, about 3 feet back. That means the back steps are now coming up through the kitchen floor. The front steps are separated from the house by about 3 feet. The house is pretty much split in half on the inside. Folks out here felt the aftershock. Folks who took us on a little tour of the place, here's what they told us. Why don't you take us on a tour here?
The dining room kind of went down right here. It went down and
oh man, it's
pretty shaky. Watch it.
It's shaking.
Yeah. The kitchen really buckled up. The back stairs just went straight underneath the house, if you can see. It's all buckled up.
That's the back stairs there?
Yeah, the back stairs is right there underneath.
Man.
And the whole house is a little. It's just everything fell out of the cupboards and it was just a total chaos. My grandmother lost everything.
Now this is your grandmother's house. How long has she lived here?
Maybe like 65 years, around there. 60 years. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe more. I'm not sure.
And this is a very old house.
Yeah, it's real old. There was nothing here before. It was all dirt land around here.
This was the only house to occupy this property ever.
Oh yeah, it was dirt when they first came here. It was just a dirt lot. They have pictures and everything of it.
Lasted a long time, but
yeah, it's I don't know. Hopefully we can remodel it. It's the only thing my grandmother has, and this is where she lived. My grandfather died here, and we all grew up here.
How is she taking it right now?
Real hard. She's real upset. Real hard.
Very, very shaken up, and it's been about 48 years. Yeah, and this is what we miss about it. This is our life here. It really is, and just to see it destroy like this, I think one more quake or aftershock is just going to destroy it. And she's very shaken up.
How are you guys taking it?
It's bad. We grew up here.
We're sad. We have like, I don't know how many babies were born in this house, and it's like a whole memory just is dying along. We're all dying with it.
Indeed, they are gathered out front, outside of the house now. They're taking everything out that they can. Their grandmother, Juanita, very distraught right now, just unable to really talk or deal with this whole thing. And the house it is a total loss. Having been through a few of these quakes, having covered a few of them, you can tell when it looks like a house is not going to be able to be saved. This one is pretty much split in half on the inside, half leaning one way, half the other. The walls are caving in. It's pretty much a total loss, a very sad one for this family. A lot of babies born here. The grandfather died here, and now the grandmother, Juanita Neri, is going to have to find another place to live. Reporting live in Westwood, Mark Brown, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Mark, thank you.
Sad.
The aftershock that we just felt struck nearly 11 hours after the initial earthquake at 4:31 a.m. this morning. Let's go out to Caltech and our Jeff Michael. Jeff, do they have a preliminary reading for us?
I think they've got a pretty good reading, Harold. That last aftershock that we felt was just written on the board. This is Dr. Jim Dolan, who's with me, by the way. 3:33 p.m., a 5.5 magnitude. That is the number that all of us have been hearing about ever since 4:30 this morning, when Dr. Kate Hutton told us that it was very possible that the large aftershock of just about a point less than the initial quake could eventually hit. Dr. Jim Dolan is an expert in the LA Basin area as far as understanding the faults. One of the questions, Doctor, that we asked earlier was, did we know that this fault that caused the original earthquake actually existed? Had it been charted?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have three potential faults. First of all, we're not sure on which of them the earthquake occurred. All three of those faults were identified before the earthquake. Two of them, initially we had thought had not been identified, were in fact identified probably decades ago by a famous California geologist named Thomas Dibley. He's an old oil company geologist who's mapped all of Southern California.
Let me interrupt you then. Understanding that we've charted these faults, that we've hit this 5.5 that we've all heard, can we expect better news from this point on? The 5.5 is already hit. Is it going to be diminishing from this point on?
We can expect to see significant aftershock activity probably for weeks from an earthquake of this size. That may include magnitude 5 range earthquakes. I think the good news here is that this is probably not a foreshock to a bigger earthquake. The chances of that diminish dramatically in the hours after an earthquake. If it is a foreshock, or if it were a foreshock to a larger earthquake, chances are that larger earthquake would have occurred very soon after the initial earthquake. The fact that we're now 6 or 7 hours after the first earthquake suggests that it's probably not a foreshock. The longer we go, the better. And when we get to about 3 days after the earthquake, the chance that this is a foreshock diminishes just to nothing, essentially.
Earlier, we heard from Dr. C. They had been out actually looking at the soil. Harold Green had asked the question if they had found any fissures out in the soil anywhere in the San Fernando Valley. I said I didn't believe that they did from the air. Are we right about that?
Well, Carrie C. and I went out for 4 hours this morning in a helicopter looking for surface faulting, such as we saw on landers. You've seen the spectacular pictures on television of offset roads and power lines. We didn't find anything like that in our reconnaissance of the northern San Fernando Valley. We crisscrossed all the known faults in the region to try to figure out whether there was any. It doesn't appear that there's any significant surface rupture.
Reconnaissance much as Air 7, our Newscopter 7, is doing right now, as you can see. It would seem to me it would be very difficult to notice any fissures from this type of altitude.
Well, strangely enough, in an urban setting like this, it's pretty easy to recognize these things. Think about all the straight lines we got. If you have an earthquake and it offsets a straight line, it's really easy to see a broken curb. It's really easy to see a crack across the road. So in fact, it's very simple. You just follow roads up and down, crisscrossing these things. If they're not broken, there's no surface faulting.
Okay, Dr. Jim Dolan, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Once again, a 5.5 aftershock at 3:33 this afternoon. You say, Bobby, you can get that? All right, go on up to the computer model up there, and we'll zoom in and give you an idea of how they are mapping this here at Caltech. The dots that you see represent all of the aftershocks in this area. The larger the dot, the greater the aftershock. Because of the concentration in the Northridge area, it's difficult to see where this 5.5 hit, but you can bet that it was right in that area. The good news is, as Dr. Dolan has told us, with the 5.5 out of the way, we might be expecting some aftershocks in the range of 5.0, give or take, for the next few days. And the other good news, this was not a foreshock, apparently, to a greater quake. So good news at this point from Caltech. Harold?
Jeff,
Okay, Jeff.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
While you're still there, you just showed us that computer picture, and very nicely, too, compliments to Bobby, of the aftershocks scattered around.
Right.
I didn't realize that the aftershocks would be scattered all around the area like that. I thought that the aftershocks all kind of were centered along the same faults that had produced the first quake, and that's a new point for us.
Well, actually, Ann, there's so many fault lines that we're talking 10 miles below the Earth's surface, and there are so many fault lines that are interconnected that they force pressure onto one another. And so these aftershocks are that pressure relieving itself on the different fault lines. They all know that they're centered under Northridge, the original quake, but where it goes in the splinters after that is anyone's guess.
But most of those dots, though, are to be clear about this, and if you could get one of the scientists to clarify this, these are earthquakes that have occurred in Southern California, right? These are not aftershock dots, correct?
Now, you're asking if the yellow dots are aftershock dots up on the computer module, Dr. Dolan?
That is correct. They are aftershocks of the 6.6 earthquake this morning.
Okay. They are then, Harold. Those are all aftershocks.
So they're not, but they're not clustered on the same fault area. They've been produced on other little faults as the pressure kind of jigs and jags out through Southern California, right?
Right. You know, and all of us like to, me included, we want to bring this down to its most understandable common denominator, and that would be, for many of us, the San Andreas Fault. A lot of our questions have been centered on that San Andreas Fault, and the geologists and seismologists have all said, no, get away from the San Andreas. Understand that the LA Basin is like a big bowl that is full of these splinters, and this particular fault line that it began on is only about 10 miles wide, the whole plate, and there are just hundreds of them under the earth.
Now, Jeff, I've got another question. I see a couple of little aftershocks centered out in Santa Monica Bay. If Dr. Dolan is still there, would you ask him if the series of 12 or so little earthquakes that were out in the Santa Monica area over the last couple of weeks have had anything to do, do they believe, with producing today's big earthquakes?
Actually, Dr. Dolan's taken up right now, but that question was addressed, Ann, and I'll answer it as best I can. The quakes that happened last week, they don't believe are connected at this point, even though there is a fault line that extends under the Santa Monica mountain range that would go out to the coast. There were, however, a couple of reported small tremors around 2.0, 2.1 prior to, just a few hours apparently, prior to the 4:30 quake. They would probably be looking at those more than they would the Santa Monica Bay tremors that we had earlier last week.
So we did have a swarm before we had the one they hit at 4:30. Well, I'm sorry the doctor isn't there because, quite frankly, I'm still confused about the dots. To me, those dots represent. We had an arrow on the big dot right there in the middle earlier. We had now we've moved the arrow up, so somebody's playing with the cursor.
Well, that last arrow could very well be the last aftershock.
All right.
Those clusters there in the middle are where the whole thing began then, right? Those are the centers.
Yeah, one last point, and I know you guys need to take it back, but remember, since the Landers quake that we've referred to so many times, there have been 60,000 aftershocks. So if we were to stay on this computer model long enough, that whole screen would be filled with dots.
Very interesting.
Wow.
I want to make another point, too. We go out to Caltech, and we put those geologists on the spot because, quite frankly, I think all of us want us to hear that it's all going to be better, that it's all going to go away, and that everything is going to be A-OK when we wake up in the morning. But the fact of the matter is, it is an inexact science. And when they say they have a particular fault charted, but they didn't know it was active, that's because we are just learning as we go along. Each time we have an earthquake, these good folks learn something from it, and they can help us in our understanding. But we in no way want to go out and try to put those folks on the spot and tell them that everything's going to be all right and that this is going to happen and that's going to happen, because the fact of the matter is they simply can't do that.
Yeah, when they've been telling us for a long time not to worry so much about the San Andreas fault, but these smaller earthquakes.
There's Kate Hutton again. Can we grab Kate, because she has so much information for us.
Okay, Harold Green was asking a question, Kate, as we looked at the computer model up there. There were so many of those yellow dots that I said were aftershocks and that centered in that area. Can you explain how the computer decides where to put those dots and why they are there?
Okay, well, the computer looks at, well, we have signals coming in from about 300 stations around Southern California, and the computer looks at all of the arrivals and looks for earthquakes that are the beginning of the earthquake, which is an increase in the strength of the signal, and it looks at the time that those happen, and it tries to work backwards to the epicenter and figure out where and when the earthquake occurred.
But once again, all of the dots on that computer model that we see in the lower right of our screen are aftershocks.
Aftershocks, right, according to an automatic computer program which is doing the first analysis.
So we have probably had, what, in the neighborhood of 60 aftershocks at this point?
A total, I'm sure we've had hundreds.
Hundreds since 4:30?
Yeah.
Okay, Harold, there's our answer.
I'm glad you clarified it for me. She pointed out we've had at least 100 on any given day, Annie. We have probably that many. They are just so small that we don't feel them.
Yeah, that is true. Jeff, we thank you very much and thank Dr. Hutton and Dr. Dolan. We are looking with Ron in Newscopter 7 at a fire out in Northridge area. This is a new one, I believe, Ron.
It sure is, and in fact, the timing on this thing, this had to have been caused by that the last aftershock that we just had. Now, where we are is just north of the Northridge Fashion Mall here. It's just right off proceeded north of Nordoff. And as you can see, this house is completely involved. Now, we've got, LA City Fire has now about 6 units on board, plus they have Fire 5 overhead. Now, we've got one water-dropping helicopter that is standing.
It's like it's in another.
Some of their conversations based on the fact.
California, hundreds so far. The largest aftershock came today at about 90 minutes ago, registering 5.5 on the Richter scale and raising these huge dust clouds over Southland Mountains. An earlier quake had a reading of 5.0. Mother Nature's big blow hit in the pre-dawn darkness. It measured 6.6 on the Richter scale and was centered near Northridge. As of now, the toll from this quake has been heavy, especially in the North San Fernando Valley. 24 are known dead, 5 from heart attacks, hundreds of others injured, hundreds more are homeless, property damage now listed in the millions of dollars. Fires erupted all over the North San Fernando. An overpass on the 118 collapsed, and part of the Santa Monica Freeway at La Cienega broke apart at 2 points, a third of a mile apart. Part of a Northridge shopping mall and his parking garage fell in, and firefighters finally rescued a man trapped 8 feet down. Hillside homes in Studio City were torn and pulled apart as homeowners tried to scramble to safety. A train carrying dangerous chemicals derailed, its boxcars tossed around like matchsticks. Disaster declarations have been issued by President Clinton, Governor Wilson, and Mayor Reardon. And while thousands of police and firefighters try to help the victims, the message has gone out. Boil your water, conserve your power, stay off the phones, stay home, and please stay calm. One seismologist at the U.S. Geological Survey said, "This is not the big one, but I think we'll all agree it'll do."
Harold, as you read through the damage list there, I was thinking the same thing. We've all been talking about the big one over the years. This was big enough. Let's bring you up to the minute right here at 5 o'clock. We are going to be in a state of emergency here in the city of Los Angeles, and that means that there will be curfew at dark. We've been saying all day, if you don't have to go out, don't go out. Now the city is saying, don't go out if you don't have a legitimate reason, because they'll ask you to go home, and some people may even be arrested. There's been problems with looting. 1,500 National Guards are going to be deployed this evening to make sure that looting is not a problem and to make sure that really devastated areas, people have a chance to maintain whatever they may still have intact and not have any further problems with stealing. There are no food, water, or gas shortages. Now, we've seen pictures throughout the afternoon of people lined up at grocery stores and at gasoline stations and really unhappy and angry with each other, trying to get in there and get supplies. There's plenty of supplies in the Los Angeles basin. Sit back, sit tight, and by tomorrow or the next day, things will look a little better, but don't panic and feel that you've got to get to the store. A lot of transportation has been cut off today. Metrolink is telling us that it will be back in operation tomorrow. Literally, freeway traffic has been completely severed today, and it's not possible really to get north of Los Angeles County right now because our ways north on the freeways have been pretty well cut off. Metrolink back tomorrow, though, and we can give you some word on different classes which have been canceled tomorrow. We have word here that classes at Cal State Northridge will be suspended now until January 30th. Kids are on a semester break there, but the university's new parking facility was destroyed today by the earthquake, and walls and floors damaged in other buildings. Cal State Northridge won't be back until the 30th. And we also want to tell you, and this is new to me, that schools in the Los Angeles Catholic Archdiocese will be closed tomorrow due to the earthquake. Lack of electrical power and water service has been a problem for the Catholic Archdiocesan schools, and they're going to be closed tomorrow as well. Harold.
And the students at Campbell Hall studying so diligently for finals will get an extra day because they don't have to show up tomorrow. As you read along the school closures, the LA Unified School District, all of schools will be closed tomorrow. As we continue to run through the list, we are right now out in the area where the California Aqueduct comes down to the I-5, which is behind that scene. And the water right now, it brings to my mind as we continue to show you the schools that will be closed on Tuesday. Water is a major problem in the San Fernando Valley. They have had to shut off the water, and they've brought it back online, but apparently the late word is that they are going to shut it off again because they can't get any chlorine into that water, and the pumping